Our next teller, when I spoke to him, his answer was probably one of the most surprising, and it will give you a clue as to where he might be from. He told me that his favorite food from childhood was ackee, saltfish, and breadfruit. I don't think I've eaten any of those. Eating those foods reminds him of someone very special in his life, his grandmother. And today, he'd like to share a story of another special person who was a mentor in his life. Please welcome on stage, Dr. Joel Ying.
Perhaps we should love ourselves so fiercely that when others see us, they'll know exactly how it should be done. Rudy Francisco. When I was in elementary school, I was, and I'm embarrassed to say this, I was a nerd. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Dr. Joel, you're so suave, so sophisticated, so well-dressed. It was not always like this. It all started in the first grade at 6 years old. My parents moved from Jamaica to Florida, and I couldn't figure out why all the other kids thought I spoke funny when they were the ones with accents. I began to bury my voice beneath the shame of being different. A little boy in the hall pulled up the corners of his eyes and made sounds that he thought was Chinese. I don't even speak Chinese. He doesn't even know me. I began to bury who I was beneath the shame of being different. My parents moved in December. I started school in January, mid-year. Social circles had formed, and I was on the outside, so I kept to myself, quiet and shy. The only piece of advice my immigrant parents could offer me about school: education is the way to succeed in this country. This is a truth that I have lived. But then they said, do what your teachers tell you. They had put a label on my forehead that said, teacher's pet. Shy, awkward, teacher's pet. The stars were aligned for me to be a nerd. In the third grade, the thing happened that sealed my fate. The class would copy math problems from the chalkboard. Problem was, I couldn't quite see the board, but I knew what to do. Copy from your neighbor, and then solve them. I'm pretty sure I always had the right answer. I just didn't always have the right problem. Mid-year, the school had a vision screening. A note went home to my parents, glasses were ordered, and for the first time I could see the sharp details of trees, sidewalk, people. I had been missing social cues of smiles or frowns, unless they were right up in front of me. And worse yet, people assumed I could see them. He's just ignoring us. So I ignored them, because I couldn't figure out what I was ignoring. Shy, awkward. Now with thick-rimmed glasses and Coke bottle lenses, I was fully armed with all the necessary accoutrements to be a nerd. And if this was not enough, now that I was getting the problems and the answers correct, the teachers decided that I might be, dare I say it, smart. This was the kiss of death. I was tested for the gifted program, and weeks later, a kid just trying to fit in gets pulled out of regular class for an hour a day. And all I remember is confusion. Why am I here? I hung on to my parents' direction. Do what your teachers tell you. If nerd had been stamped on my forehead before, it was now etched in place by being smart. I buried myself further into schoolwork and a thick skin. I was a nerd. Now, I know you're wondering, how did a nerd, socially awkward, culturally different, isolated, alone, become this amazing specimen you see before you? Sixth grade was the start of middle school. A whole new world was opening up for me. I had a chance to remake my image, and I had a plan. New clothes, New school, new friends. I was gonna be cool. The bell rang in the first period of 6th grade, and I realized I was still me. All the shame of a nerd had moved to 6th grade with me. I buried myself further into schoolwork and hung on to that life raft of an immigrant. Education is the way to succeed in this country. It was the second semester before I got a breath of fresh air. The art classroom was not like any other class I'd been to before. We sat at tables in groups instead of those individual desks. The smell of paint and art supplies and possibility soaked the room. Mrs. Chenault stood at the front and spelled her name. C-H-E-N-N-A-U-L-T. Chenault. It was a strange name for an African-American woman. But right away I knew she was not like the other teachers. She wore artist caps, hair in weaves or braids, bright-colored shirts, matched her socks. She seemed more like one of us. She was not like the English teacher, prim and proper, wearing old lady dresses, who talked to us across the gulf of generations. She was not like the social studies teacher, who was oblivious to what the students were doing behind his back. I felt sorry for him. He had no control of the classroom. It was a zoo of spitballs and students jumping out of their seats. Mrs. Chenault had a strong presence, a strong voice, and a strong personality. She seemed to have eyes in the back of her head. From across the room, she could turn and yell, "Michael, when you know better, you do better. And I know you know better." She loved herself so fiercely that when we saw her, we knew exactly how it should be done. We knew exactly how it should be done. Sorry. She was an amazing person for all of us, and we were not so much afraid of her, but we were afraid to disappoint her. Halfway through the second semester, I had to type an English paper. My typewriter was broken. Miss Chenault, I asked her if I could borrow hers. My parents signed a permission slip, and a couple days later, she took me to her house. I saw the typewriter on her husband's desk, but she sat me down at the dining room table where she had her computer. She taught me how to use the word processor, and I fell in love with the computer. Then she showed me the project she was working on. She had drawn pictures on the computer and wanted to teach kids how to read with phonics and stories. She taught me all that she knew about the computer and programming, and I was captivated. As we worked on projects together, we talked about big things, little things, just anything. And for a shy, awkward kid, to have someone listen, truly listen, is a gift I'm eternally grateful for. She brought me out of my shell. I began to speak up for myself in class. Strength rubs off on you. One day she said, "You gotta learn to say no. When I was young, I practiced on my family. You can't say no to your family. Who can you say no to?" I laughed, but she had homed in on my people-pleasing, teacher's pet, little mouse personality, and she was determined to find a lion in there somewhere. She took me under her wing as a mentor, guiding me through the school system. She gave me advice on things my parents as immigrants could not understand. I often spent 2 to 3 evenings a week at her house until my parents got home from work to pick me up. One day, her oldest daughter was visiting. She's in her late 20s, moved out long before. She saw me typing away at the computer as usual. She turned to her mom and said, "You gotta stop stealing other people's children." "I'm not stealing him. He's got parents." You see, I was not the first that she'd adopted into the family. Over the years, she became like a second mother. My family would join hers at Thanksgiving, Christmas, and other family gatherings. We spent many days after school in the art classroom or at her house working on projects together. We worked on school newsletters, school art projects, computer fair projects, her reading program, science fair projects, her master's dissertation. Yes, all kinds of nerdy things. We were nerds together. I suddenly realized that she was a nerd too. And she was accepted, respected, and admired. I could be a nerd and be respected, accepted, and admired too. When I graduated from medical school, I remember she took the time to say, "I'm proud of you." You see, I'm still a nerd. I'm still a little awkward. I still wear glasses, and I still like to do nerdy things. But I found my voice, and I'm proud to be exactly who I am. This fine specimen of a nerd, because someone took the time to see me, to hear me, and to love me. I would like to honor Melva Taylor Chenault, the teacher, the mentor, the second mother. I would like us all this morning to take a moment to honor all those who have mothered us, all those who have mothered us, all those who loved us so fiercely we learned to love ourselves.